You should have now answered the question about why you think Shylock is going to do this merry bond with Antonio. And one of the things that should be doing is focusing your attention on this idea of justice, what it is that Shylock wants out of this relationship with Antonio, this bond that he has with Antonio. He's looking for something very specific, and interestingly enough, given the stereotype that there is, that we start with, it's not money. We will learn that more and more. We know it from the very beginning, of course, but we're going to find out more and more about what it is that Antonio has to give Shylock, that Shylock wants. After all, they are living in Venice, and Venice is, in comparison to Belmont, not a very forgiving place. It's a world of law. It's a world of justice. And indeed, when you look at even the way Antonio himself thinks about his country, you'll see that. After Antonio discovers that he is losing his money, he ends up avoiding people, not wanting to go out onto the Rialto, afraid that he is going to have to indeed pay back this bond, but mostly he's just simply afraid that he is no longer going to have the status that he had before. We talked about that quality that Antonio has of being between two worlds, where he is a merchant who seems to have aspirations towards being an aristocrat, but and is tied to Bassanio as a result. But he is also, of course, still a merchant, and therefore it means that his identity is going to be very closely tied to how much money he does have. And now he's seen that money disappear. His friend has disappeared, his connection to the aristocracy, his money is disappearing, and it's not surprising that he doesn't seem to find himself particularly worthy of mercy, or certainly even worthy of life. He's going to talk about himself as somebody who hardly deserves to live. And indeed, as he is hauled away to jail, he is to have to face this judgment. He is quite willing to let it happen. As a matter of fact, if you look in Act 3, Scene 3, when Shylock, he starts out this scene saying, "Jailer, look to him, tell me not of mercy. This is the fool that lent out money gratis." Jailer looked to him. And Shylock says he's going to have his bond. "I want my bond. Okay, speak not against my bond." Okay, and then also points out that he has a reason. "You called me a dog before you had a cause. But since I am a dog, beware my fangs." That he embraces his animalistic quality there is something we have to remember as we move into the trial scene in a moment. No wonder you would think at this point that Antonio is going to be very resentful, but instead what he says is, "Leave him alone." Okay? And indeed defends what it is that Shylock is doing. Salanio is willing to go to the Duke and make a claim for him, but Antonio says the Duke cannot deny the course of law. Remember, Venice is this place of law. The Duke cannot deny the course of law. For the commodity the strangers have with us in Venice, if it be denied, will much impeach the justice of the state. Since the trade and profit of the city consisteth of all nations. Therefore go. These griefs and losses have so baited me that I shall hardly spare a pound of flesh tomorrow to my bloody creditor. He's willing to defend Shylock's right to have this enforced, certainly defend the right of Venice to enforce this law, based entirely on the importance of commerce. That's what to Antonio is important at this point. He's like Shylock in that way. His link to Shylock is their shared value of commerce. And indeed, that's kind of what the passage says when he says that the trade and profit of the city consisteth of all nations. So Antonio is living in this world of law. He is subject to the law and has accepted his role in that. And so we shouldn't be surprised to see what is going to happen in the trial scene. Because as long as the trial scene is governed by the rules of Venice, this world of law, it is not necessarily going to go particularly well for Antonio. Now, I want us to spend a little bit of time on the trial scene and that tension that there is in the trial scene between justice and mercy. We expect law and justice to be aligned, but there's another extension of that. You have law, you have justice, and that also connects us to that idea of revenge. And we've always been thinking of revenge in terms of what Shylock wants. Shylock wants revenge. Revenge is a lot like justice. Justice is tied to the idea of law. And now Shylock is going to actually be using the law to proceed towards revenge. And that makes us have to reassess what we think of the idea of justice and its connection to revenge. And we're going to be dealing with a number of plays, including Hamlet, of course, that address this issue of justice and revenge. Now, when we go into the trial scene, there is this insistence upon justice. Shylock keeps saying, I want my bond. This is what I am entitled to. This is the law. This is just. And when confronted with this, the Duke looks at him, who doesn't know how to handle this claim. He's dealing with the fact that indeed Shylock is honestly in the right. And he says, how shalt thou hope for mercy, rendering none? Now, Shylock isn't looking for mercy, he's looking for justice. And so Shylock turns to that concept of justice. And when he does, his logic is going to be right, even if his heart is wrong. He says, what judgment shall I dread, doing no wrong? This is in Act 4, Scene 1, about line 90. Okay? What judgment shall I dread, doing no wrong? And then listen to this, and this is where the logic gets good. You have among you many a purchased slave, which, like your asses and your dogs and mules, you use in abject and in slavish parts, because you bought them. Shall I say to you, let them be free, marry them to your heirs? Why sweat they under burdens? Let their beds be as soft as yours, and let their palates be seasoned with such viands. You will answer, the slaves are ours. So do I answer you.